Without any further ado, I will introduce our session speaker today, the uh, Beyond Compare, Mr. James Hollier from CSAA Insurance Group. The floor is yours. Oops, I'm so sorry. I think you're muted still.
All right, so I'm trying again. So how y'all doing? I'm excited today. You can tell I'm a little bit nervous, but excited to hang out with you guys. How are y'all doing today?
Doing well. Doing good.
Good, good. So one, just want to give some background how I got here and how we're talking today and what I kind of would like to have happen today. So I was asked by someone who I'm mentoring, Sadie Brooks, who works with UCO very closely. And she asked during one of our mentor sessions, would you mind speaking with these young men? And just like I told Liz, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, sure. I have a very high respect for Sadie and what she brings to the table. And if she's asking me for help and or to assist, I don't, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to do it. And when I talked to Liz, I was so happy and so surprised about what you guys are doing and what you guys are all trying to accomplish in your own personal lives and overcome. So that made me even more excited. And as we started talking, something that popped up in the conversation triggered, and that phrase was "be ready for the past." So that's what we're going to talk about today: is being ready for the past. What does that mean? What does it mean to you? And hopefully, we are going to be able to have a conversation today. I don't want to sit here and talk to you guys or talk at you guys for an hour. I want you guys to be able to ask me questions. I'll be as honest as I can and transparent as I can throughout the process. But this moment in time is a safe space. There are no silly questions, dumb questions. None. The only thing that may not be beneficial to you is not asking the question. So I'll expect that along the way that we can interact and have questions and talk about some specific things, not just what is important to me. Is that fair? Nice. So I'll give you a little bit of background on me. Again, my name is James Hollier. I do work at CSA, and at CSA, I'm a senior leader within the service organization. So I currently lead 17 folks. I've had teams as big as 30, depending on skill set and what they require in terms of what we are doing for our different and new divisions. So I take on all the new stuff on my team. My team is kind of like the test and learn team. So they'll throw something my way, tell me, can you make it happen? And I always say yes, whether I know what I'm doing or not. And the reason I say yes is because I have a group of folks who are ready for the pass. I can give them anything, whether they'll be ready or not, they're going to do something with it. And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about. I've been at AAA for about 10 years, and I started taking phone calls. I started at 11.25 an hour, y'all. And you hear a lot of stories as you progress through life and you start your careers. You're going to hear stories about people coming in, they start at the bottom and they work their way up to the top. Those are really great stories to hear. But I will tell you, in life, in real life, sometimes you're not going to see that very often. So you're going to have to set your own milestones. You're going to have to set your own celebrations up in advance so that you can stay engaged. And that's part of being ready for the past. So I'll tell you what that means to me. And I'll pause every once in a while. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate, raise your hand or just speak up. Being ready for the past means to me, it all starts with practice. It starts with a dream. It starts with where some of you are not right now and recognizing what you currently have. So my understanding is you all want to be leaders. Is that correct? And you all are taking steps towards that right now. So when I say be ready for the past, think about basketball. Who all has played basketball before? I'm assuming a lot of us, right? So if you haven't, it's okay because I think it's still the concept is still universal. So I played 5-man, which means my back was to the basket more times than not. So those who haven't played basketball, 5-man is going to be your low post. It's going to be inside working in the paint. Because of that, there's some things I had to know, and there's some things that you're going to inherently have to know as you progress through life in your career. Some of those things are what do you do when you get the pass? So for those who played basketball, you know that you have so many decisions to make in a short amount of time, and then what you're trying to decide is which is the best move ultimately, right? So now you're in a high stress situation. You're having to make a quick decision, and you may not have all the information you need to make that decision, but you're going to get immediate feedback whether it worked or not, and then you're going to have to make some real-time adjustments or course corrections throughout the game. Is that fair? So for those who haven't played basketball, the concept is familiar, right? It's not a foreign concept. So what I'm trying to explain is sometimes we don't give credit to ourselves for already possessing some of the talents and the characteristics that you would think a leader would possess. Does that make sense? So in that, within that realm, when I say be ready for the past, what does that mean to you? When you hear that, what do you think of immediately? I'll start calling on folks, so just volunteer if you want to.
Me, I feel like it means you have to take advantage of the opportunities that come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, I mean, the more you take those opportunities and you use them to your advantage and you create more opportunities from those, you're going to get a lot more experience and you're going to be able to handle those high stress situations and those quick decisions easier, if that makes sense.
It does. Thanks, Nathan. Anybody else?
I mean, I think it's just another way of saying stay ready so you don't got to get ready.
Perfect. I think both you and Nathan and James have it right. Go ahead, James. I'll cut you off.
It's just being open to opportunity. You can't learn if you're not willing to learn. You won't be able to see the lessons being told to you. So just approaching things with an open mind, being ready for the challenges or opportunities that approach you. Pretty much exactly what Nathan said.
Yes. So what are you doing in real life? So the one thing about leaders and being a leader is sometimes you're really good at philosophy, or you're really good at explaining the why, and there's a gap between that why and action. So what are some things that you all are doing in real life that you think are preparing you for that next step, or do you even know where you are currently in your process?
I think for me, right now I'm one of the leaders at my school. I just put together some of the literature to have it to where we're able to have clubs this year, organizing things online because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Just closing that connection. Then I work in my community with some community leaders, Dr. McPherson, to kind of bring some young guys together and give them the chance to be open or be shown that there is a academic or curious yearning or spirit that they can have. I know when I was growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't get it till I was about 15 or so. So 3 years ago. Things like that, trying to get rid of some of the barriers that was there when I was their age.
Man, that's real. I'm so glad you said that, James, because I think that's a key point. And actually, it's a great segue. I think that, and something you said was very important to me because I know it's true, especially as I'm in my career. I've been in AAA for 10 years, and I've seen people come and go, and I think I can see successful people in action now. But one thing I've learned is that sometimes, even though a person is successful, even though they're driven, and you can see that they are going to be someone. There is some value in saying, "Hey, I believe in you." There's some value in saying, "Hey, you know what? I was you, but it's going to take some time for you to get to the conversation you need to get to." So it took me, and I told Liz this the other day, and I really mean it. It's the concept of time is precious. So if money is not a real currency. Money is something that allows you to have a transaction, right? But it's not a currency. It's not the currency. Our real currency as leaders is time. It's the one thing that we can't make more of. We can't get it back. All we can do is spend it. And as leaders, it's really important for you. How do you spend your time? What do you invest in? Who do you invest in? So that brings me to the next thing. I think the first thing that a leader should do, the very first thing that I learned to do, was start investing with me. It starts with you. And when it starts with you, you have to ask yourself the question. You're in this room, right? And you did some certain things to get here, to get to this room, and in order to set yourself up for future success. That's great. But the challenge is what got you here will not get you to the next step. There's some things fundamentally that are going to be true that you're going to need for the next step. But there's also going to be some things that you're going to need to do actively that we all have to do as leaders. And that is try new things. Step outside your comfort zone. Work with people that you normally wouldn't work with. And I say that because if you invest in you, that's probably the best investment you can make. So I go to Oprah when I think of some things like this. You know, we all know Oprah. We all know she's been successful in whatever she's tried to accomplish, and she's helped other people along the way. And one of the statements she was asked was in regards to how do you prepare for your next step? How do you prepare for your future you? She says, doing the best thing at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment. So setting up the future you should begin with a couple of things. So one, uncovering what others need from you and why. So uncovering what others need from you and why. The next thing that I call out is stating the impact you want to have personally and professionally. So in order to do that, you have to reconcile A and B to form a purpose statement that guides you and your actions. So perhaps thinking about your actions in relative to personality and accountability. So to take that a step further, if you think of somebody like, I don't know if you guys have read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, so within that book, you know that accountability breeds responsibility. So ultimately, accountability is a big responsibility that, if accepted, drives effectiveness, builds trust, fosters respect, promotes fairness, and inspires engagement. It's a lot of philosophy in there, right? There's a lot of thoughts in there. How do we make those real? How do we make those real? And so, as you know, I know it's a rhetorical question, but this is something that we all should be thinking about as leaders. Because there's one thing in a leader who says, you know what, I can do anything, and you need to follow me because I can do anything, and I'm good, and I'm a good person. That's talk. That's talk, and you can mislead a lot of folks with talk, and it'll get you by. Don't get me wrong. Talk will get you through the door most days, but at some point, people are gonna look at you and say, "Well, James, you said this," and that's when it has to walk. So, the best thing in my book that I found when starting with me, and what got me here and won't get me there. The best thing I found that works and helping me get to the next spot is engaging with different people. People like y'all, having these conversations, people like Liz, people who have fresh ideas. Yeah, it's great to hear from me because I've been through some of these things that you are expected to go through. But it's great for me to hear from you because it keeps me fresh and it keeps me in the know of what the future needs. So the millennials aren't going to be the same people, are not going to be the same people that I currently lead. You guys are going to be leading as millennials. And as the future leaders of people, you have to start studying people. That's the only way to get it done. I'm gonna pause and to give you guys a chance to talk. So what resonates? What questions do you have so far? If there's nothing, that's okay. We'll keep moving. All right. So when it comes to building yourself and investing in yourself, and then also building leadership skills, and by a show of hands or comment, how many people plan from point A to point Z? Nobody? Nobody plans point A to point Z?
I mean, I try, but it usually doesn't go quite that well.
Why, Nathan?
Because there's so many variables that can just come out of nowhere whenever you try to plan so intricately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because particularly like if you're trying to start a business or just whatever operation you're trying to start, if you take everything at face value and plan from there, you're not going to be ready for those unexpected variables. But then again, if you just try and plan for all the unexpecteds, you're not going to be able to fully handle the situation at hand. So it's always a fine line for me at least.
So can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Have you ever tried working backwards with your plan?
I mean, I don't know how I would
work backwards.
Yeah, well, in my case, I guess it's hard to think about it like that. I don't know. I think I should think about it like that. I need to figure that out.
That's the cool thing about it, though, right? So again, as leaders, you got to be different. The way we think is different. The way we read is different. The way we read between the lines is inherently different. And I love the fact that Nathan's being honest and open right now, and in respect to saying, I don't know. I think that's some of the most powerful things a leader can say at some point is, I do not know, honestly, and allow others to step in and help. That's the biggest thing. So in Nathan's point, so specifically, what are you trying to accomplish? What's your big picture?
Well, I'm really into movie making and really just like multimedia arts in general. And I'd like to start some sort of production company that lends itself towards the arts, but also towards social commentary and stuff along those lines, because I feel like lots of people see either like the social commentary or they see the art, but they don't. Lots of people struggle with making that connection, I feel like, and especially in the younger generation, there's so many. It's so the extremes are accentuated. So
Okay.
I think that's something that I'd like to help my generation sort out as we, because we need to have a collective voice, and I think we don't really have that right now, with TikTok being our face, Gen
Yeah.
Z.
So let's listen to you a little bit closer, Nathan. I don't think that. Let me back up. I think what you stated in the last half of your statement, that you want to provide a platform for your generation to do X, Y, and Z. That's your why. That's your big picture that you work backwards from. Now, what does that mean? That's how, because I think working backwards is probably the best way to accomplish some things, because working forwards, you can get stuck because some things you're not going to know to do. But working backwards from your big picture says, okay, I want to create a platform for my generation to bridge the gap between, you know, independent film and engaging supplemental content on the internet, right? So you work backwards from that picture, say, okay, what do I need to do what do I need to do today in order to make that happen at that time, right? So what are some of the things that you can start doing today? One is, I think you're participating in the class to help you build those skills. I'm sure you're looking online to find information out about those things, right? And how to make everything work in the background. So you're doing some steps already that you need to give yourself credit for. So you give yourself credit for learning and making a statement. So you're doing that today to encourage that outcome to be what you dream it to be, right? And that's a lot of people think, well, that's just working forwards. It's not. You're working from a big picture to kind of plan out your steps. And in the corporate world, what that is called is an individual development plan. Have y'all heard of that before? No. We got some no's, we have some yeses. An individual development plan does just that. So it makes you sit down and look at 5 years out. And this is the way I always teach it in my mentoring sessions. If you look at 5 years out, who do you want to be? So once you know who you want to be in 5 years, you can back up to day one and say, I need to start doing this today. So for instance, I'll pull up mine and see if I can share it with you guys, just so you can see what one looks like if you haven't seen one before. Now, mind you, I wrote this one out in 2013, and inherently some things may have changed, but for the most part, I think I'm still on the same path. Give me just 1 second. I thought I had it ready for you all. Oh, I did. It's in my outline. I use Teams at work, so I don't know how to use Zoom. So bear with me as I figure out sharing. But it looks like it's pretty easy. Oh, it's disabled.
Oh,
Okay.
what I will do is I will make you the host, and then you can share the screen all you want.
Okay, cool. And if at any point during this conversation I'm talking about something that is not interesting to you or not what you want to know, please stop me and ask a specific question. I'm here for you guys today. I think something happened. All right. Let me know when you all can see that content.
Yep, we can see it.
All right. Do I need to make it a little bigger?
Y'all good with
So
it? Yeah.
as you can see, this was done in 2013. And what at this time I was an associate underwriter, which is the entry level position. So what I was asked to do was look 5 years in the future and see what I wanted to be. So 5 years in the future, I wanted to be manager one. So I had to ask myself, what am I doing today in order to make sure that I'm a manager one today? So I had to start with my why. And a lot of times your why could be labeled a lot of different things. It could be, I'm going to work and I'm just doing these things. I'm chasing my dreams because I may want to do it for my family. I may want to do it for my city, or I may want to, whoever you're doing it for, you may want to do it for you. You need to have a statement that says what and why you're doing it. So this statement, again, was written in 2013. My career plan is based on a continuous improvement, constantly acquiring knowledge, building on strengths with the foundation laid. The focus stays on integrity in my actions and decisions, staying goal driven while keeping people development and customer service needs in mind. Also maintaining an understanding that it's not always about my success, but those around me reaching their goals, building on their strengths. And the end goal is consistent of being an expert in removing obstacles, building relationships, and developing those around me, creating a pipeline of talent throughout the enterprise. And all that was me dreaming big. That was me talking outside of who I was at that moment. And it was trying to imagine who I wanted to be and start to communicate as that person. So the first thing I needed to do was, what was my short term? What was my 1 to 2 year goal? Once I figured that out, I wanted to be promoted to an underwriter. I needed to set up meetings. I needed to do these specific things to make that happen today, right? After that, I wanted to be a supervisor. This is in 1 to 2 years, which is very aggressive in the real world. I wanted to, once I have underwriting experience, I wanted to start working on these set of skills. So develop a tolerance of change. Based on those changes, develop ability to communicate them in a positive way and be able to quantify how a person is performing and coach to those results. Once I knew that, I was like, okay, well now I know in order to be a manager, I need to have the underwriting skills, I need to have the supervisor skills, but then I also know I needed to have an enterprise-wide project. And I knew that would give me exposure. So I'm building up my skills to say, okay, yes, I can lead. I know the concept of leading, but now I know the business. I'm starting to shift my focus to knowing the business. So participating on that level gives me access to people and processes that would be invaluable to my development. The cross-functional relationships that would be built during that process would be ones that would benefit the future projects and initiatives in the future. So to continue to improve my skills through education and training, take on more active role in contributing to creative solutions while working with the club. So in my role, we have responsibility. So AAA has CSAA, who I work for. We take care of servicing insurance policies. They also have clubs who their primary focus is membership and selling policies. That relationship between the two, the club and the IG or the insurance group is delicate. And so I needed to understand how to work with that delicate relationship in order to, I felt, be a manager. And then finally, manager one, after obtaining advanced skills, supervisor enterprise-wide project, I can start bring all those acquired skills together and focus them on manager one position. Have a clear understanding how all parts move, build an educational foundation, which includes a master level degree, and most importantly, weather the storm so that I personally know how I would react in certain situations. If I was, like I said, hindsight, I probably would have put this first. Because that would have given me the ability to be patient. So one thing, I'm stopping. Does anybody have questions about the IDP and what's in it and how I arrived at this point? Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
So how would you apply this? For example, I think everyone here is either, I guess, in college or about to go to college soon.
Correct. Okay.
How would you apply a format like this to something like continuing education or going out into a job experience, whatever the case may be?
I think it's crucial. I think it's crucial, and I'll skip down. So I had a section about interviews. I think it's crucial to apply this now. So I think that the how it depends on your why and what. So as you're going through college and you may be getting ready to graduate college, what are you planning to do? What are you going to school for currently, and what are you planning to do after school? Once you know that, then you can start to say, okay, this is how I'm going to start applying these things now. So, for instance, going back to Nathan, if you're thinking about creating and opening your own business after school, then that needs to start today. So, what are you practicing that build those skills for that person, that entrepreneur, to be successful? Who are you talking to, and who is currently doing it successfully? Who are you talking to within that world to say, okay, these are the things I know I must possess? And then once you have a little bit of that and engaged, then you have to know yourself. And that's probably the hardest part, to be honest with you. Being honest with yourself and not believing the hype and getting outside of yourself is probably going to be the hardest part about you developing your career path or your independent development plan, because we lie to ourselves the most out of anybody we know. And that lie could be little. That lie could be, it's okay, I'll just catch it tomorrow. Or it's not that big of a deal, or nobody will notice, uh, or they don't like me. All those things can derail you from having a clear path forward. So what I would say back to your question is you have to do a little research in order to be able to put a development plan together. So it wasn't as if I sat down as soon as I walked into the job and said, this is what I want to do. I started that job in 2009. You see, this is dated 2013. It took me that long to get to the point to where I can say, hey, this is what I want to do. So to answer your question, I can't definitively say, without knowing the details of what you're actually trying to do, tell you how to apply it. What I can say is this takes out the general speaking and makes it more specific. Um, these are some high level things, but in order to accomplish some of these high level things, I had to get really specific about what I'm doing today. And if that means that you need to do more research on the job market, if that means you need to find out how many people in your degree actually go into that field of work, and if so, what do they possess that others don't? What makes them so special that they can go into it? And how many people fall out of that line of degree? So if you have 100 people in your degree and they all go into the workforce, how many are going to their field? How many are going outside of that field? And then where does that leave you? Based on the statistics, and your honest assessment of yourself and your ranking of your skills and where you're at, were you top student, middle student, lower student? And are those that you're comparing yourself to and researching to, where do they fall? Are they top, middle, or low? And is that a result of them working in their field and maybe you having the potential of not working in your field? Those are all things that contribute to, in my opinion, your career development plan. But you have to know those things in order to put it together. So if you're this is, I think this was the fourth version of this development plan, because things changed. I learned more, I had to change it. I learned more, I had to change it. I've not changed it now because some of the stuff I share this often with people I'm mentoring, and some of the stuff that I know now I can't put on here because they are not privy to that information. But again, I think that it starts with research. The second step will be to, once you've done your research, honestly assess your skills and the value you bring to the table, you think, and then assess the market. Then you put your plan together and say, okay, well, I know that 80% of the folks in my field don't go immediately into a field after work. It's oversaturated or the competition is too high. So what do I then need to do in order to now, knowing that reality, what do I need to do to set myself up to then participate at a later date and or course correct and say, yeah, I have this degree, it's in this particular field, but the real world says that that degree is oversaturated in the market. That degree is not specific enough to say I want to work in this field and be paid top dollar, or I just simply don't know enough about the field in real world. And put those things together and start saying, okay, I need to take extra class here. I need to get a mentor within that field that I want to, within the career path I want to go into. And with that information, I can start saying, here's what I'm going to do. But that's a start to say that, hey, I need to do research. I need to get a mentor. And it may take me a longer time than I thought to actually work in that field. What are some alternatives and what can I do to build skills that I need for that field? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions around the development plan? All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. So how do you start to think about what do you guys, let me back up. What's your biggest challenge now in terms of leadership beyond the unknown? Like in your current real world, today and tomorrow, what's your biggest challenge?
I think myself would be the biggest challenge.
Yourself. Tell me more, Xavier. You can't just drop it and walk away.
I think it's myself that I hold myself back because sometimes I'll believe like, oh, I don't think I'm qualified for this, or oh, I don't think like someone else should be more qualified for this, or somebody else has more experience than me. But clearly, if someone was chosen for that position, they clearly have an aspect that no one else does, and that like tinge of like self-doubt may show up later, even though I may not feel it now. It may show up in like later results, like, oh, I want to audition here, but like, I don't know about that. Maybe I shouldn't. And so it's always gonna be like reoccurring, even though I'm not fully conscious of it. And so I'm like probably like the biggest like resistance to anything I do in the future, since I'm the only one who knows my talents more than anybody else. So
I heard that. Who else feels like a Xavier? I know I do. I just went through that, man. I just went through that, Xavier. I think it's real, and that's always going to be there. It never goes away. I don't think even the more you progress in your career path and the more successful you are, there at some point you ask yourself, is this real life? Like, is when is the rug gonna be pulled from under my feet? When is it all gonna fall apart? I think that's constant, man. It is something that I deal with today, and I share with you a story. So we just saw my IDP, and we saw that my 5-year goal was to be a manager. I'm a little bit behind in 2020, right? That's supposed to be 2018. So I finally got an opportunity to audition for a manager position this past week. And so you have to know in my role, I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do. I feel like my team performs at their best level. We all make the most bonus at the end of the year. People like me, and I feel like I have some pretty witty things to say at times. But the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that stood in my way was just what you said. I work with 13 amazing folks who lead amazing teams. And at any given time, they have better skills than me in my mind. And I think that's just a product of a high performer, right? As high performers, we are our worst critics. We are, I mean, I fire myself 2 or 3 times a week, man. It's real life. But because we're hard to please. I find most good leaders are demanding, not only of their team, but mostly of themselves. Um, and with that comes along that baggage of, man, am I good enough? Do I belong at this table? How do they really feel about me? Am I smart enough today? I mean, all those things come into play. And one thing I will tell you is that of what you know right now, you're an expert. And you have to always remember that. You got to believe that. If I'm coming to you and Xavier, I'm saying, hey, man, you got to tell me more about what's your thing? What are you into? Yeah, you.
I know I'm into music like
Okay,
heavily.
cool. So if I come to you and it's like, Xavier, I need, I'm starting a YouTube channel. I need an intro, and then I bring you what I have, and it's trash, it's garbage, because I don't know what I'm doing. You say, man, I got you, James. I do this for fun. I do this for a living. You become my expert. At that point, you have taken the driver's seat. Your hands are on the wheel. The only thing that removes you from that seat is you don't tell me what's going to happen next. That's the only thing. And you have to remember that power that you have. We all have it. There's something that nobody else knows that we do. And that makes us an expert, and that gives us grant access to that table. That gives us the opportunity to provide an opinion. And that gives us the opportunity to take risks. They're always going to be scary. So back to the story. So I applied for the job, right? And so then I told my boss, you know what, I don't want to apply. I don't. And he said, why, man? I said, I don't think I'm ready. I think there's 3 or 4 people who could do the job better. And so I named those 3 or 4 people, and I told them why they could do the job better. I'll be daggone if one of those people I mentioned didn't get the job. And it was only because, and I said, well, why not me? What is it that I failed to do in that time that that it was going to be, that it should be me? And it was his response was, the only thing that took you out of the running was you doubted yourself. You took you out of the running. He said, I wanted you to be that manager so bad, but I don't want to invite anybody to my team with the type of changes we're making now in the company who doesn't believe that they got this 100%. And that was the biggest mistake I made, y'all. And this hardest thing for me to get over. It recently happened. It was in my hands. It was in my control. But my self-doubt crept in and it took it all away. So that's Xavier, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. And in interviews, since we're talking about that, those of you who are getting ready to graduate and want to go get jobs and want to get the high-paying jobs, there are some things that are key in interviews that I'll share with you since we're on that topic. The first thing is you got to get big. Who knows what I mean by that? Okay, Nathan, look at you. You're ready to say something.
Well, I mean, the way I'd interpret it is like you have to put yourself out there and like make yourself visible on like a public level. You know what I mean? So like you could be Googled or whatever. You know, I mean, that's just how I think.
That's cool because it's a new way of thinking. So your thought and my thought are totally different because you grew up different than you have a different bias than I do, right? So my thought would be, hey, I'm gonna get big because I know scientifically what I mean by that. So there's a TED Talk. I love watching TED Talks. There's a TED Talk about body language, what that means, and how that transpires into success or not. So they did the study and they had folks go into the interview room and they had a group of the people do power poses for 2 minutes prior to their interview. And then they had a group of people who did not do power poses prior to the interview. And what they found was, and the interview was a stone face. They didn't give you any indication that they liked you or not. And what they found was the people who did the power poses were more confident. They were more authentic in being themselves in the interview. And they were able to secure the job. The folks that did not do it, they didn't do as well in interviews. The science behind it says that it increases testosterone and reduces with the cortisol levels in your body that produce that paranoia or that panic almost when you're in the interview process. So that's what I mean by getting big. Nathan, your response is also real because how we get big is different now. So no longer are we doing interviews in person where I can get big and get in there and they can feel my presence. And it's all the show of the body and the language coming together. Right now, it's a media presence. What we're doing right now, it's you're interviewing that way. So yeah, can I Google you, Nathan? Do I know what you're telling me is true during the interview? Because I will do that in the interview.
I mean, not yet, but it's
Okay,
coming up.
cool. Hey, that's all that matters. As long as it's on the horizon, I'm good. So those things all come to play. So back to the basketball thing. So if I tell you guys who played basketball that my fondest time when I played basketball was walking into the gym and hearing those lights and smelling it when nobody else was in there. Who all knows that smell? Who all knows what I'm talking about? It's familiar, right? So when you're in an interview, that's the same thing I'm looking for. If Nathan, I look for a couple things. But if I want to hire you, I look for energy because I can't teach you energy. Either you bring it or you don't. I look for smiles. Is this something you really want to do? Does this make you excited? Do you smile about it? Then I'm okay. You got me. I'm listening. The third thing is who are you? What do you represent? What's your brand? How do you display that? And then the last thing is if you're telling me, hey, I've done this before. I've done this role before in a prior job. Okay, so then tell me something familiar. Just like I shared with you, I like playing basketball. I love to hear the hum in the window and the lights. If you play basketball, you know that's real. You felt that, you smelt it, you know what it is. Same thing when it comes to applying for a job. A lot of people say you need experience in that particular role. The honest truth is you need experience in life that leads you to be successful in a particular role. So do you all make quick decisions? And can you make quick decisions? Can you make a quick decision with absence of anybody telling you that it's right or wrong? Are you able to connect the dots? In layman's terms, can you see the game? So what I mean by that is in your current role, current life, current experience, doesn't matter. It all builds up to the same thing. Can you see why people make certain moves? And do you allow them to? So for instance, if you're, man, so much to talk, I'm running out of time. Okay. if you, how do I tie this into so it makes sense about everything else? So your brand, I versus we, and then building a circle of influence. We're all going to talk about that in one nutshell, hopefully, in this content. So if you're building talent within yourself, and you say, hey, you know what, I may not have been a supervisor before, but I coach, I mentor, and I'm a leader amongst my church group, my peer group, whatever the case may be. Great, perfect. That's experience. Now, how do you position that experience to say, I can do this job now because of that, right? So if you're saying, hey, I make quick decisions because I've got to, I got to make it home every day. And so that involves me making quick decisions that lead me to getting home in one piece. That's skills that you can't buy. Those are life lessons that you'll never forget, which makes you a strong candidate. Does that make sense? I've got to choose the right circle of influence. So if I know I want to be successful, I've got to ask myself a couple of questions. Do I want to be the worst person on the best team or the best person on the worst team? What do you think?
Worst person on the best team.
Worst on the best, James? Okay. Who else has? Anybody on the opposite side?
I'd probably go with the opposite.
So you're going to be the worst on the or the best on the worst team?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else is on their side? So we're gonna divide us up right now.
I'm on
It'll be
the worst on the best team.
Worst on the best. Okay.
I don't want to be best on the worst.
You don't want to be best on the worst.
I do.
Oh, you do want to be best. Okay. VPE, you said you were going to say something too?
You could be the worst on the best and still lead and be the best person on the worst team. Well, to explain it, like you could be the worst person on the best team, but you can still be the best on the team, still by leading and still by showing effort and showing that you want to be out there. You can still be the worst, but you're best like in different ways. You don't have to be
Right.
just good.
Right.
So
Right. I'm with you.
I'll say
So
worst on the best.
worst. Okay. So the people who chose worst person on the best team. Why? Just give me one or two.
I mean, if you're the worst on the best team, that's so much opportunity to grow. You have, if we're looking at like basketball, 4 other people to constantly learn from.
Okay.
4 other people who constantly have your back, can guide you, that you can guide, and that way they learn from you. Like you have the best chance of having a support network to grow with you and help you grow.
Okay.
You know, help you grow.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to James's sentiments for the worst on the best?
I'd want to be on the worst on the best because if you surround yourself by people who succeed, then you'll push yourself harder to like meet their standard. So if you have an A and it's a really easy class, then it's not going to be like self-fulfilling. But if you have a C and you're in like a really, really hard class around smart people, then you're going to push yourself to study harder, be better, and you'll only grow.
Right. Right. Okay. I love it. What about the best on the worst?
I would be best on the worst.
Tell me about it, Chaston.
If I'm the best on the worst team, obviously I know something that my teammates don't. So I think I would try to teach my teammates. And
All right.
I feel like that would be the best choice, yeah.
Okay. Who else wants to, who's on that side with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same way. It's like if you're the best of how your team is, you're gonna want to make your team the best. So if you're there starting at the top, you can grow by yourself, but there's only so much your team can grow. So I mean, if we're looking for the most growth, the most change, and we're looking for the biggest, splash we can make, I feel like you have to go with the best and the worst team, because then you can really guide it the way you want, and you can make the splash how you see fit.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else? This is good. Go ahead.
My fault. You also could you don't start as the best person on the team. You also have to work your way up there. So at the same time, everybody, it may seem like some people start out the best just by just being out there, but everybody started out the worst person on the team. having to look up, having to work hard, having to become that best person on the team. It's not
Uh,
just, you know. So at the same time, it don't like really matter. You could just be, you could feel like you're the best person on the team, but you still got someone that works harder. You still got someone that's like, that's actually the best person on the team, and not just you thinking in your head that you are.
right on. So I love this. So I love that you guys are on both sides of the coin, and I feel like there's no wrong answer. It's all on your perspective, right? What is your perspective right now, and how do you want to lead? So that brings me to my next point: the type of leader. So in my book, there's two types of leaders. There's a servant leader, and then there is a leader who wants to win at all costs, right? And I think that once you decide which leader you are, so a servant leader says that, my gifts don't belong to me. They're not about me. My leadership is not about me. And my purpose is not about me. Um, but if I want to be a servant leader, my perspective is on a life of significance around serving those who need it. So my gifts are there for them. My leadership is for them. My leadership and my purpose is for them. So that extends to you all. So I view myself as a servant leader. I was that guy who wanted to win at all costs. Don't be wrong. And that's why I love VP's answer, where you can be in both circles. At some point, you're going to work yourself around in both circles, and it's no right or wrong circle to start in. That's my point. Because if at the end of the day you're looking to get better, it's all practice. So you're right. You're going to have to fight your way to the top to be that best person on the worst team. And if you are engaging, if you are a servant leader, you want people, it's lonely up there. There's plenty of room for us at the top. So that's your opportunity to explore and establish your leadership style in that environment, because you're going to need to know how to do it, and how to get people to move, how to influence people without the title necessarily. So you may not have a title of leader, but then how do you practice in order to get that title of leader, right? So I think that movement you guys are talking about, that influence, I wouldn't mind. I've been the best person on the worst team, and I've been the worst person on the best team. And they're two totally different experiences, sitting in that seat and being that person who is the worst. It's a tough experience. You're talking about, Xavier, you talk about uh, some self-fulfillment, some self-realization that has to go on during that process. You have to be humble. You have to be hungry. And you have to be a leader still. And part of the hardest part of leading, I think, is following, because we always have the right answers, right? In our mind, the ideas that we come up with are pretty daggone good, because I came up with it, and I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm a leader. But if Nathan says, you know what, James, today is not your day, and this is something I do allow on my team in real life, y'all. If today is not my day, I have 17 folks who I can lean on. So it may not be my day to be the best leader I can be, but it may be Xavier's day to be the best leader he could be today. And he's gonna have to take up the reins. He's gonna have to pick them up. So it doesn't matter if you're on the worst team or the best team or where you are within that team. Can you sustain that performance level? Which is probably not easy to do. So you have to get used to inviting people into your circle. So the next step, after you've experienced being the worst person, you experience being the best person, now your next experience is, how do you create your own circle of influence? Does anybody know what I mean by circle of influence before I go on? Okay, I see some heads nodding. So how do you build your own circle of influence? This is a circle of influence. The group of you coming together, sharing ideas and holding each other accountable, that's a circle of influence. And where you are within a circle of influence doesn't really matter, because any given day you guys have the right answer, any one of you. What matters is what do you do and take that outside of the circle of influence, and how do you influence individually based on what you learned? Because there's nobody in history, I mean nobody, who says that they got to where they are by themselves. It's impossible. You didn't even come into the world by yourself. So how are you going to get to where you are by yourself? You're going to need a team. You're going to have weaknesses. I have weaknesses. So again, but going back to my team, going back to real life, I'm very good at developing people. I'm very good at identifying processes and establishing processes. I'm very good at identifying when somebody's in the wrong role and trying to find them the right role. That's my niche, and that's what I do well. I'm also very good at being a hands-off leader. I can be micromanager. I can do that very easily. But I prefer and I enjoy being a hands-off leader because that gives you all the opportunity to lead. So back to football, back to whatever. You're not going to be a good quarterback if you never get snaps. You're not going to be a great leader if you never get a chance to lead. So it's important. It's imperative. It's almost do or die that within your circle of influence, you practice those opportunities. You take those opportunities. And it's also important as a leader to give somebody the opportunity. So yeah, you may have a better idea, or you may have done it before, or you may know the outcome already because you asked the question. That's not the point. The point is, okay, maybe Xavier does it different and he gets a different outcome because he's inherently different. His natural bias is different from mine. He's raised differently from me. So maybe now, because there's a different bias, he gets a different outcome because he sees things differently. And that's okay. That's test and learn, y'all. And Nathan, to go back to your point, in order for you to improve a platform, a digital platform in today's age, you're going to bring a team of folks together to code, to do all those things that you're going to need behind the scenes because you do not need to know how to do it all. That's the biggest mistake we make as leaders is we want to know how to do everything. Why? Because we don't want people going anywhere else. Because there's an old saying that says if people are coming to you, you're doing a good job leading. Wrong. Wrong. That's how you stay busy. That's how you get nothing else accomplished but whatever everybody else's problems. And that's how you teach people to play chess. I mean, I'm sorry. That's how you teach people how to play checkers and not play chess when it comes to making moves in life. So my philosophy when I lead my team is I don't answer questions. I do not answer questions. And that throws a lot of people off because they say, well, dang, man, I'm new to this. You might have to answer some questions for me. I don't know everything. Well, look it up. Look it up. Lean on your team. And the whole point is not to say I want you to struggle. That's not my point. My point is to say that you have depth that you don't probably know about. You have the ability to do things you probably haven't done because nobody's asked you to do it. Even when we work out and we lift weights or do whatever, when we get tired, we stop. If we're by ourselves. If we had a trainer, I don't think that trainer will let us stop most times because we can always go a little bit further. It's the same thing with learning. It's the same thing with applying things to life. You can always learn more. The beauty of life is you can always get better. And with that in mind, I'm demanding that way. You can do this. I wouldn't have hired you. I get to hire my own team. I wouldn't have hired you if I didn't think you had the ability to do what I'm asking you to do. The problem is we don't feel comfortable failing. And I want y'all to listen to that. We don't feel comfortable failing. I found out over years, I force people to fail. I force them to do it just because I want you to get over it. Because you can always fix something. There's always a lesson learned in failure. And I don't see very many people, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't see very many people moving on in their career who are afraid to fail. They're really good at something. They usually stay that way for their career and they don't reach their full potential. My thing is fail fast and fail forward. And the reason is, one, you need to get used to it, and two, there's so much to learn from it. You can never improve or course correct any process without failure. It's impossible. If you didn't fail, that was a pretty bad process. You might get lucky every once in a while, but it's a pretty bad process. So again, and I'm a leader, I'm running out of time. The last thing I want to talk about, you guys, is something that struck me hard when I was trying to transition from who I am to a professional who I am, right? And that was, what's my brand? And I know you guys have been asked that. Maybe you have not been asked that, but I was not asked about it until I got into an interview. And I had no idea what my brand was. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even know what they were trying to ask me to even consider. It took me a year or two to figure out what my brand was. And I will ask you the same thing. Is how I figured it out was if I was wearing a billboard and I was walking up to you or walking away from you, what would that billboard say about me that I want you to know? So what image or what lasting impression would I leave you with or approach you with? And that would be my brand. So eventually my brand became, as I saw people like you come into the workforce for the first time, I have some folks that are right out of college taking phone calls who have heavy degrees and they're discouraged. This is not what they signed up for 4 years to do, to come out and take a phone call. I'll be honest with you. And that's a hard pill to swallow for some folks. But I started to see that. So I said, you know what? These people don't know what's going on. This is their first corporate America job. The politics are real. The games are real. and people get tapped on shoulders to do things, and that's discouraging. Um, my brand was, if you want to be successful and pass me in your role, follow me. I'll show you how to do it. I'll teach you how to do it. If you want to be a supervisor, you need to put an X on my seat. Every day you need to be figuring out, how can I take James' spot? Every day you need to be figuring out, what can I learn that somebody else knows in order for me to get to where I got to be. Then once you learn that, give it back. It's not yours to keep. And what I mean by that is if you've gone through it, if you struggle, which I love people who struggle in life because they're very successful. If you've struggled through some things and you figured them out and you're still standing, you won. You have won. The reason why is because somebody else is going to have to know how to get through that. And if you haven't been through it as a leader, how do you expect to lead somebody through it? If you haven't struggled, if you haven't had regret, if you haven't been laid off, if you haven't failed, if you haven't done any of those things, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to become the leader that you want to be until you do. And trust me, it'll happen. You'll have those opportunities. You'll have those tests to work through. My point is some of us have already been through those tests, and we don't give ourselves credit for it. And what I mean by that is it seems small. It seems small to say, you know what, I finished with a 4.0. Well, you're a nerd, right? No, I struggled to get that. They weren't handing out A's. I struggled. I worked hard to get that. Hey, I made it through high school. You know, as a young black man, that can be a struggle. That can be a struggle. I made it through class. Those things can be struggles. But at the same time, they're not setbacks. They're just practice. I mean, y'all remember Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice? Yeah, we are talking about practice. And the reason why, the reason why the reason why I bring that up is because practice is not just for you. People need to see you practicing. So that's the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with today, and that's being authentic. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was nervous coming into this. When I told Liz, we talked, I said, man, I'm not even sure I want to do this. Because I don't know what it is. I haven't done anything like this before, and it's just new. That was me being authentic, girl. That's how I felt. And we have to get into a space where that's who you are. You're not gonna be successful in anything, leadership or not, without being you. Because what happens is you show up to work, you show up to your friend's house, you show up to wherever you're showing up as the fake you, that causes you stress. It causes you stress. That means you have to remember whatever you said that inflates you to those people, and every time you see them, that has to be you, right? Well, what's going to happen is we see through it. We see through it. Just like I said before, if you have gone through something and you know things to be familiar, you know when things are unfamiliar. So we see through the lies or the facade or whatever, because eventually you're going to be your natural self. I would say be comfortable with your natural self now. You're good enough, man. God made you the way he made you. The struggles that you're going through are preordained as steps that you have to take in order to become the leader that you need to be. Otherwise, you would be great. You'd be great at who you are, but you wouldn't be that great leader that you want to be, or that great person you want to be. I say keep walking through it, y'all. I know sometimes it feels like this is just unfair. The world is beating on you. Whatever the case may be, consider it a different way. It took me 43 years of experience, learning, failures, whatever, to get here to this conversation and talk to you guys. For whatever reason, it took me that long to gain enough experience to make something relevant hopefully come out today. It's going to take you some time as well, but some things are inherently going to happen. They're not all bad. Yes, there are bad situations. Yes, they don't feel well. But at the same time, if you don't go through it, and if you don't finish the test, how will you ever know what's waiting on you? How will you know? So I'm gonna end that with saying, hey, I believe in y'all. I know everybody didn't get a chance to talk to each other, but just by the mere fact that we're in the room together and you guys showed up asking questions, I believe in y'all. I really do, man. And I think that's sometimes it's all that it takes. Us believing in each other, supporting each other, and saying, you know what, you're worth it, and you are good enough as you are. You don't have to be somebody you're not. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to put somebody else down. If it's gonna be, it's gonna be. You just have to trust it. You just have to trust it, man. So thank y'all. I appreciate you guys invited me today. I hope that it was beneficial to someone. And I will give my, this has my information. If anyone wants to pursue mentoring engagement with me, if you guys just want to reach out and ask questions, I'm always available. I'll do as much as I can to help you all out in terms of asking questions. Those of you going into the workforce, please reach out to me. We can do some mock interviews and get that going. But whatever you guys need, I want to make myself available for that.
Thank you so much. I hope you all show Mr. Hollier some real appreciation for his time today. I'm going to ask you one favor. If you can make me host again.
Oh, sure. How do I do that?
Thank you so much for your time today and for your investment. So if you want, you all know my email, so please feel free to reach out to me to connect with Mr. Hollier. And your new assignment should be up. It got sent out on Monday. If you are having problems with it, please email me. Y'all have been amazing. This is going to be a little bit more work, so you may want to start on a little bit earlier. But any questions, anything you all need from me before we say goodbye today?
I don't know how to give it back, Liz. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you are fine. If you go into participants.
Okay.
And then see me, and then click more.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Okay. You guys are amazing. We'll see you next week. Reach out and connect with Mr. Hollier. You've got 2 more folks in your corner who are here for you. You've got Mac from last week, and you've got Mr. Hollier right here. And now you have each other too. So we're building our networks, and we'll have a little bit more time to chat next week. You guys did a great job today. Thank you for reaching out. And Mr. Hollier, thank you so very much for sharing everything.
I'm humbled. I'll be honest with you. To spend time with you guys, I'm humbled. Again, please reach out if you guys have questions. I'm never too busy, but I'm always interested in sharing. What if somebody would have told me that, or I've been listening at that age? You'd be so far down the road, you'd be retired by now. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you so much. See y'all next time.
Justin wants to be a member.
He wants to be who? What?